And when I rose up from the ocean, put my feet upon the sand, I can tell there was a changing, for I am a different man. Come with me down to the ocean, where the water calls you and me to dive in deep and go down under, there to see what we shall be. We rise up from the ocean, put our feet upon the shore, we will know there's been a changing, for we're not what we were before. Rough and angry, and the winds forever blow. But there is a transformation in the stillness down below. And when we rise up from the ocean, start to walk in the morning sun, we can tell there's been a changing, transformation has begun. Welcome, everybody, to this hour that we have called On the Edge. And we're talking about and singing about being on the edge of chaos, on the edge of destruction, on the edge of danger, on the edge of falling apart, on the edge of transformation, on the edge of a new life, on the edge of life or death. And we're going to be singing and talking about what some people call addiction, what some people call compulsive behavior. And this show comes out of having seen so many of our religious and political leaders fall off the rail, either because of sexual compulsion that makes them live a double life. Some people call it addiction, some call it compulsive behavior, or the addiction to drugs, the absolute preoccupation with money at any cost, no matter what it takes. Just gotta have it, gotta have it, gotta have it. And we tell a story today about a friend of mine who has gone through the awful process of being healed from this addiction or compulsive behavior, who's been healed from living a double life, who's in the process of being transformed. But first, a couple of stories from our beloved scripture. This is the story about a woman who is caught in the act of adultery. You'll find it recorded in the 8th chapter of John, Gospel of John. And this is my take on that story about a woman who's caught in the very act of committing adultery. And she meets Jesus, and here's what happens. I remember that day when they banged on my door and they dragged me to my feet. Remember that day when they banged on my door and they dragged me to the street. What to my wondering eyes should appear but the leaders of the Jews. In just a moment, the whole thing came clear and I said, oh my God, I've been used. Listen, lady, we understand you've been messing with somebody else's man. We need bait and you'll nicely do. Cooperate or we'll throw the book at you. Listen, lady, here's the plan. We're gonna catch us a Galilean teacher man. We will bring him the likes of you, and we'll ask him what in the world to do. If he says to stone you like the law declares, then his crowd is gonna leave him and we won't have a care. If he says to let you go, we've got him in the trap. For contradicting Moses' law, he'll have to take the rap. Listen, lady, come with us. Shut your mouth and don't you dare put up a fuss. So they took me straight to Jesus and they told me all my story. Can you imagine those people all standing there looking at me, wagging their heads saying, stone her, stone her, stone her, stone her, stone her. Wait just a moment, said one of the Pharisees. All must be done in order. Must have been a Presbyterian Pharisee. So they came to Jesus and they said, oh, good Rabbi, we've come to you, we've come to you. Oh, good teacher, what shall we do? Ah, this woman was caught. Adultery was a crime. She should be stoned, be stoned. She should be stoned until she's dead. Wah, 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 wah. Stone her then. Stone her then. But let the sinless one throw the very first stone. He bent down and with his hand he began to write something in the sand. One by one they all backed away. Where are your accusers now, he said. Why no one stands here accusing me? Then I don't accuse you either, he said. Go your way, go your way, go your way and sin no more. There's a place that's as clean as a mountain stream, that's as bright as an April morn. There's a place for rebuilding a shattered dream. It's a place where hope is reborn. It's a place that is open to all this day, where grace falls like a sweet springtime rain. It's a place that is only a step away. It's a place of beginning again. Next song is a 21st century take on a parable of Jesus. This is the parable about the man who built barns, and when his barns were all full, he said, "Oh, I've got no room for all my crops. I'll build bigger barns and bigger barns and bigger barns." And Jesus ends the parable by saying, "Well, too bad that the guy built all these barns and tonight he was going to die." So this is my take on that ancient parable. I have a little drum here, which is usually it's a stand that sits by our rocker, but I've discovered it makes a great drum sound, so I'm using it. He's got gourmet taste, he's got money it takes to buy fine wine to drink and expensive food to eat. He's got a lovely wife and the wherewithal to put fine clothes on her body and expensive shoes upon her feet. Nothing like a glass of wine that should chase away the blues. He loves those expensive clothes, he loves the expensive shoes. Putting it all together and living it all he can. Putting it all together and then he's gonna be a happy man. He's got a private plane and he's got capital gain. He can afford to fly himself most anywhere. He's got 13 Lamborghini cars and in his house 3 built-in bars. Lots of high-toned friends who say they really care. Nothing like a private plane to let you go where you want to go. Nothing quite like knowing the people that you really want to know. Putting it all together and living it all he can. Putting it all together and then he's gonna be a happy man. He's got savings accounts in Swiss banks to a healthy amount and shares in major corporations all around. And maybe in 20 years or so, he will go where he wants to go, and no one in this world is gonna put him down. Fool, don't you know it's over? That's all that I can say. Tonight the final curtain is being drawn across your play. You wanna put it all together? Well, you'll never see the dawn. For tomorrow morning, you're gonna be quite dead and gone. So, I told you it was going to kind of be a serious show. Now, the story that you're about to hear about a person who dealt with a lifelong set of problems. And you'll hear about those. Dealt with what is called by my friend a sexual addiction. The psychologists define these things differently, and if you look in the DSM-5, it doesn't list it as a sexual addiction, but we're not going to be worried about particular psychological terms. What we want to be thinking about is what this person went through. Now, the person did not want, obviously, to be seen or known for anonymity's sake, and there are too many people who would be really, really hurt, especially the person's spouse. So we're going to get only audio, and the voice has been altered. I want you to hear what the voice sounds like so that you won't be freaked out when we start the story, okay? So the voice will sound like this.
Darkness, shame, desperation, anger, hopelessness. I am alone.
Okay? That's what the voice will sound like. Now you're used to it. Now you can concentrate on the words. I thank my dear friend in advance for being willing to tell this story. And here we go. Fly with me on the wings of your story. Take me to some place you know. Run with me down roads you have traveled. I want to follow where you choose to go. Sail with me down the rivers of your memory. We'll sail together. There's so much to see. Fly with me on the wings of your story. Time's all we need, my friend. Come story with me.
Darkness, shame, desperation, anger, hopelessness. I am alone, scared, and empty. Despair camped out in my soul, taking up all available room. Joined by its friend addiction, they taunted me with false promises of release from pain. Somehow, some way, the next time would be the answer. The seductive voice said it's a matter of life and death, and I had no answers other than to believe and to appease it. But each time the darkness grew darker, the shame exploded, and more I became convinced that I was just plain defective. One of those weird people on the edges of sanity. I would get on my knees and bargain, please, I will do anything. Just remove this from me and I'll never, ever do these things again. Days Sometimes weeks would go by with some success, but my resentments and anger would tell me I deserved better. The addiction would overwhelm with its strong voice to convince me once again that my problems were all external, not internal. That all I had to do was find release and everything would somehow be magically better. Then, after literally decades of abuse, neglect, and anger, my spouse found what I had strived so desperately to keep hidden. The unraveling was disastrous for us both, but challenged her in life-threatening ways. Rage, sleeplessness, questioning. Those were the operative terms for early days and weeks. I began to wonder if it would be better if I were not alive. Wouldn't that just solve it?
Standing on the edge of a precipice, looking at the rocks down below. I've chased too many phantom promises. Now there's no place left to go. Too much running and too many roads. There's no escaping anywhere. I've fallen into caves beneath mountains of lies. Smell the smell of death in the air. I am standing at the end of the line, at the end of the street. I am standing on the edge of a cliff. There's no ground beneath my feet. On the edge of a dead-end street. I started out in the morning sun. Now the day has turned into night. Pillar of fire went and burned itself out, and there is no other source of light. I know I've got to talk to someone soon, but there is nobody here I can tell. They won't believe somebody like me could be living in a personal hell. And I'm standing at the end of the line, at the end of the street. Yes, I'm standing on the edge of the cliff with no ground beneath my feet. End of a dead end, end of a dead end, end of a dead end street.
Some small voice entered and quietly began to tell me that I needed to listen and hear what others were saying. That indeed, I was in big trouble and needed to figure out what to do next. Even in her time of extreme need, my amazingly strong wife walked beside me as I began to explore what options were there. It was apparent right away that professional counseling was in order, and soon, twice-a-week meetings became the routine. Since for decades I had been lying, one of our good friends suggested that my wife accompany me to my appointments as an observing truth teller. What they might not have known is that very thing likely saved our marriage. Listening to my history and watching me struggle to understand and accept unacceptable things. We began to see a critical need for the kind of intensive therapy that only inpatient care could provide. With excellent recommendations, I left everything behind to spend some weeks at a top treatment center. Those weeks helped me identify the cumulative effects of my upbringing. My father, an often absent and distraught man, died before my 10th birthday, leaving me in the care of an extremely unhealthy, insecure mother. Her demons induced her to abuse me sexually and coach me to lie when I thought I needed some goal achieved. Frequent moves served to cut me off from developing normal childhood relationships. Then, the horror of the war in Vietnam and the warped sexuality that was the norm during that experience set me on a seemingly inevitable path of destruction. At the treatment center, I began to comprehend that there was a path to healing. My counselors told me that this was a challenging but worthy journey that would take years, given how embedded it was in me. They suggested a routine for my life, including daily meditation, reading, counseling, and introduced me to the work of 12-step programs.
Pathways are chosen, years go by, feelings get frozen, tear ducts run dry. I've got to move on now, so I'll try to forget. All the ways that life hurt me, all the rage and regret. Where do I begin? And how do I even start to walk across that long, long bridge on the road to forgiveness and the healing of the heart. There's a room that's been damaged, house of my soul, and I try not to go there where it's lonely and cold. I blacken the windows, I pretend it's not there, I seal all the doorways, I say I don't care, but where do we begin? And how do I even start to walk across that long, long bridge on the road to forgiveness and the healing of the heart. How did we get here? Standing face to face, this bridge that could crumble beneath us. Such a dangerous place. We reach out our hands now, so fragile, so frail. Oh God, are you with us? And what if we where do we begin? Oh, somebody tell me how. Do I even start? Do you even start to walk? To walk across that long bridge on the road to forgiveness. Long, long road to forgiveness. Long, long road to forgiveness and trust and the healing of the heart.
Coming home, I felt utterly lost. The very air seemed gray and foggy, and the weight of the work too heavy to bear. From this day forward, my life needed to be completely different, so I began the tasks they had shown me to do. I will never forget my very first glimpse of healing. During the Tai Chi movement, a bright light opened up for me in a tiny instant, just a quick peek, and then it was gone. But what an amazing light it was. I had no idea then what it portended, but I sensed that I had been touched by something well beyond my comprehension. Just knowing that light was there spurred me on to continue the work. Much of it was gut-wrenching, hard, slogging, but those times were punctuated by moments of wondrous inspiration. There was a day when, during meditation, my mind became totally quiet. Yes, totally quiet. It was only a split second because of the excitement of that event. Then, on 2 occasions since, I've experienced something that words can't describe. The closest I can say is that during meditation, the boundary between me and the rest of existence completely vanished. There is no separation, just the joyful experience of being completely one with all of creation. It was accompanied by a sense of completeness and love that infused every part of me. And as I say these words, I'm struck by how inadequate they are. Days, weeks, and months have gathered into years, and now a decade plus since this crisis came to a head. Despite the glorious visions and fruits of this hard work, I'm here to report that each day still brings its challenges, and I do not always meet them perfectly. There is, however, a sense of partnership with the world and real meaning to the work I am now doing. The most significant blessing is an almost constant awareness that life is precious, that each moment is a gift, and I need to embody the incredible light of love that I have been gifted. Recognition and acceptance that I do not always do this is a reminder that the work is incomplete. May God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, the wisdom to know the difference, and the willingness to take action.
In the just before the sunrise. Waiting for night's chill to go away. I will raise this grateful voice in songs of wonder and gladness. Gladness for the wonder of the day. When the birds have filled the air with music, city sounds have only just begun. I will raise this grateful voice in songs of wonder and gladness. Gladness for the wonder of the sun. It will not be long now till I feel the warmness, till I feel the dawn breeze drift across my hair. All the world around me, buzzing, whirring, waking, grace has given thee. Again, there's magic in the air, magic in the air. Who can tell me what this day will bring me? I walk some path I've never known. Still I'll raise this grateful voice in songs of wonder and gladness. Gladness for the wonder of the dawn. I will sing on and on. I'll be singing on and on. Singing on and on. I'll be singing on and on. Singing on. In the good time, in the bad times, in the dark nights, on the bright days, in the high times and the low times, on a dark stage under bright lights. I'll be singing on and on. And that's the story. Now, to talk about this a little bit with me, I have asked an amazing friend. You might know the name Gordon MacDonald. He has been a pastor and a preacher, and those can be different things. He's been a wonderful pastor. He's been a preacher. He's a well sought after public speaker. He's been a teacher. He's authored books. He has been one of the leading voices in helping the Christian faith to find new wings. He has pastored parishioners and presidents alike, and he is my friend. I would like to introduce you and welcome Gordon MacDonald. Hi, Gordon.
Ken, hi. It's good to be with you. Thank you for asking me.
It's a pleasure. Let's talk a little bit about this story. You spend a lot of your time now with young pastors and leaders, some of whom are doing okay, some of whom are going off the rails, some of whom don't know where they're headed. How does this story ring to you?
I've listened to the story 3 times, and I think I could listen to it 3 or 4 more times, and on each occasion I would learn something new. It's not a new story. I've heard many like this. They all follow same themes. And as I listened to this one from your friend, I found all kinds of themes that I love to brood about and write about. There are 4 themes that it seems to me are right at the core of the story. One is the theme of captivity, which happens to people of any age and can easily happen to young men and women in leadership. A captivity which falls into some kind of an addiction, whether it be a sexual addiction or an alcohol addiction or gambling. Spending money could be some of the more horrific ones. The second word that came to me as I listened to this story several times is the word humility. Because as people become captive, my first word, and can't break out of it, there has to be some point where they see things they never saw before, some moment of power where you're able to break the captivity and escape from it. And the word I chose to describe that is humility, because humility means I have to recognize that I'm powerless, that I can't do this myself, that I'm going to have to walk with other people who perhaps have been through this before me and can show me what's going wrong. And one of the problems of addicts is they think they can beat this thing anytime they really want to. I'll just, one more day, one more week, one more month, and I can do it alone. Well, humility suggests, no, you can't do it alone. And you need other people, and you're going to need to come to grips with the horror of the consequences of what one has done. The third word that impressed me as I listened to the story is the word community. And that goes back to my comment of it a moment ago, that things cannot be done alone. Addictions, that captivity, is broken almost always when a person is part of a larger family of like experienced people, men and women. And in that experience of community comes the accountability, comes the truth telling that needs to be done in order for the addict to break out of whatever it is that's captured him. The fourth word that came to me was opportunity. Because if you're going to break an addiction, if you're going to move away from this thing which is so destructive to you and to other people, you're going to have to begin to tell your story to other people. Every time you tell the story, it cleanses a little bit of yourself. Every time you tell the story, it affects other people who begin to say, I see from that person's experience what can be done. Maybe I'm repeating myself when I say a third thought I have is it's an opportunity to tell the story in a dark society where there are all sorts of people who need to break and are not sure they can do it by themselves or with anybody else. But the man you've played for us tonight, who's told the story, he has done this masterfully. Yeah. And he has understood that you can't break this without the power of God as we have known him. God is faithful to him. There's a line written by a Jewish writer in the Older Testament of the Scriptures. It goes like this: I waited patiently for the Lord, and he leaned toward me and heard my prayer. He lifted me out of a slimy pit. He set my feet upon a rock, put a song of joy in my mouth that others can see and hear. The result being that they too will trust in God. That's what happened to this man in this story. And I've seen, as a pastor, I've seen a lot of people like that.
I have a question for you. I think back to a little experience that I had several years ago in a tiny church in San Francisco, where there were a number of homeless people. And as the pastor said, some of my parishioners drive Porsches and some of them drive grocery carts. And a number of people who had just come out of a life or were in the process of coming out of a life of just being so messed up. And I was amazed that Sunday morning, the service, we had to work in the music in between the stories because it was one story after another. And the pastor would say, does anybody have a word? And somebody would jump up and say, I've got a word. This week I had a major victory, so and so and so. And the stories just kept coming and coming and coming. And after the service was over, I asked somebody, I said, how did all this start? And she said, well, we don't have money to give to this church. All we've got is our stories. And I'm wondering, as a pastor, as a preacher, as a churchman, a lot of the people who are watching and listening tonight or whenever they watch are church people, many of them pastors, church musicians, church leaders, people who have been a part of churches for a long time. What would you say to us as churches about this whole storytelling thing? Is it something that we can do as a church?
The secret is in the stories. There's something beautiful about a person's experience, not all the knowledge he has or the money he has, but his story. I counseled a man some years ago who was a CEO of a major financial organization. And I don't like talking about wealth, but it's important to this story. He was an alcoholic, and he would fly all over the world, but he was doing meetings every place he went with the Alcoholic Anonymous people. I said to him one day, what's it like to fly in on your Grumman Gulfstream jet to our city? Go right away to a meeting in some damp church basement at 6 a.m. in the morning. And the guy sitting next to you is a homeless person who slept all night in a cardboard box and smells like it. And the woman on your right is a prostitute who's been turning tricks all night long. And you're the big, important CEO who flies in his corporate jet and has to sit between the two of them at 6 in the morning. What's that like? There was a moment of silence, and he looked at me and he said, Gordon, you've missed the whole main message. In a meeting like we go to, there are no homeless people. There are no prostitutes. There are no CEOs. We're just three drunks trying to help another drunk survive for another 24 hours and keep their story before them. That says it all to me.
So if we could, we are so afraid to tell these stories in our culture. If we could tell these stories, if we could tell these stories to each other, even starting simply, even if it weren't big dramatic stories, even little stories about these are my failures, these are the ways in which I'm struggling, whatever. If we could start that process of telling stories to each other, wouldn't that change things drastically?
Absolutely it would, but you have to be willing to trust the group to whom you tell the story. Yep. If people take your story and abuse it, if they break your confidence, if they make fun of you, you don't have a ball game. That's what's beautiful about some of these community meetings like AA and other organizations like it. It's a safe place, and you can tell your story there, and people will listen to it, and they will affirm you for the telling of it. I went by invitation to several of these meetings a few years ago. I sat at a circle of 25 men and women who were addicts, alcoholics of various kinds, and listened to them tell stories. I'll never forget one day, a woman walked in. I estimated her age at about 38, 40 years of age. She clearly had been one of the most beautiful women in her 20s, but she'd succumbed to the addiction of alcohol, and she was a broken human being. And when it came time, she'd started to tell her story. She said to the group, "In the last 2 months, I've been in 5 states sleeping under 3 different bridges. I've been raped 4 times. I haven't had one decent meal. I don't know how much longer I can go on this way, but I just can't stop drinking." And the woman next to her, who was a rather large woman physically, just reached over and put her ample arms around this woman who had just told her story. And I was close enough to hear what she had to say. She said, "We hear you. It's going to be all right. All you have to do is just keep on coming, and we'll show you the way." That's the kind of story that redeems and saves people.
My friends, it's time to tell our stories to each other. That's been a theme of mine for years. Tell our secrets and our stories to each other. Find the people with whom you can be safe. Find the people you can trust, and let's tell stories. Gordon, I am deeply, deeply grateful that you popped in to this hour, and I want to thank you so, so much. Please give all our regards to your partner, Gail. She wasn't here tonight, but she's also a wonderful, wonderful friend. And keep plugging, my friend. Now, you're doing a lot of work with young pastors these days.
Yeah, I am, and I love every bit of it. And the room that I'm sitting talking to you, in a couple more days, there'll be 12 pastors sitting talking about their own stories and trying to learn from each other how they can find encouragement in the love of Christ and pass it on to their congregations. It's a real privilege to be doing the kind of work that Gail and I are doing.
Well, again, I thank you for the privilege of this conversation, and I do hope that we get to see each other really, really soon when COVID is not so much of a threat. I remember many happy hours in your house. And
We
so
love that, Ken.
we will
We
be
love
together.
that. Sing us
Thank
another
you.
song.
I will. I'm a captive, I'm in this prison. I always thought there was a quick way out. I can break this thing tomorrow. Just give me one more day. I'll break it next week, maybe. I'm on my way. I'm moving now. I'm doing this. I'm getting it right. I'll be free of this tonight. You just watch. You just look. You just see. But when tomorrow comes, I wake up saying, give me just one more day, just one more day. And then for sure, no doubt about it, I will lick this thing. Day after day goes by like that, promising myself, breaking promises every single day. Until I'm lying on the ground, till I realize I'm down and I cannot do anything, anything. There's only one word on my lips now. Help, help, help. on my knees. I can't stand up. I cannot move. I've given up. And then she wraps her arms around me. And she says in that mama voice of hers, "Hey baby, it's gonna be alright. Hey baby, it's gonna be alright. Just keep coming." The guy sitting next to me is a corporate exec. The guy on the other side has been homeless for a long, long time. There's a young girl in front of me, so beautiful and so ruined. There's an old man behind me with a raspy voice for years, and he'll say through his tears, "I'm glad to be here." And so we'll tell our stories, and it's fly with me on the wings of a story. Take me to someplace you know. Sail with me down the rivers of your memory. We'll sail together. There's so much to see. Fly with me on the wings of your story. Time's all we need, my friend. Come story with me. I say it week after week. If you would like to help with this work that is going on, I've told you about Interlude, our non-profit organization that provides retreats for ministers of music. And at those retreats, we've heard stories like the story we heard tonight. We've heard stories about tragedy. We've heard stories about bravery. We've heard stories about new life. One of our retreat guests, a musician who was very proud of her conducting. I asked people to tell me about a treasured thing that you treasure. Maybe it's an old bracelet or a necklace or a musical instrument or a recording or a book. She said, "Oh, my treasured thing is my hands. I love my hands. I use my hands to conduct, use my hands to play the piano and the organ. I really, really enjoy these hands." And so I wrote a song about her wonderful hands. Well, the retreat went on, and the last day of the retreat, we're just about to close it up. And she says, "I have to tell you something. All during this retreat, I've been talking from the outside. I want to talk now from the inside. And I want to tell you about the death of my 14-year-old son." Well, needless to say, the retreat needed to go on for a while because we spent a lot of time talking about that and sharing that and wrapping ourselves around her. And we hear these kinds of stories among church musicians who are overworked and underpaid and often burned out. And we want to find a way to give them a cost-free retreat and help them get back on the road. Or even if they're doing relatively well, help them to thrive even better. We also do songwriters conferences. We send me and my music to little tiny churches that have no money. If you would like to help with this work, go to www.interluderetreats.org and you can make your contribution there. And I want to thank so many donors, some of whom can afford to give a great deal, and some of whom, can can give us a few dollars. And those few dollars with the energy of prayer are magical and wonderful. So please, please, please consider. Next week, we're calling next week Vesper, an hour of Passion Week readings and music. And we're going to be doing readings from Scripture that focus around 6 of the events in the Passion Week: the Palm Sunday procession, the small chamber, the celebration of the Passover, the Garden of Gethsemane, the trial, the crucifixion. Let's see, Palm Sunday. The cleansing of the temple. Those 6 events in the life of Jesus, we're going to focus on those. We'll do readings and music, and you'll get to hear my lovely wife Jane read the Bible. Now, I got to tell you, Jane reads Scripture like nobody reads Scripture, and it's because Jane has had an absolute love affair with Scripture ever since she was about 5 years old. This woman loves the Bible and loves to study it in depth, and loves to teach the Bible. So come around next week and hear these wonderful readings and music to go along with them. And don't forget, there's a place that's as clean as a mountain stream, that's as bright as an April morn. There's a place for rebuilding a shattered dream. It's a place where hope is reborn. It's a place that is open to all this day, where grace falls like a sweet springtime rain. It's a place that is only a step away. It's the place of beginning again. Good night. God bless you.